Though critically acclaimed Pinocchio was, it didn't do very well in the box office. However, Walt had one more project coming out in the same year, and sadly, it fared even worse in the box office than Pinocchio did. Welcome back to a new episode of Walt Wednesdays, and today we're talking Fantasia. Walt had something cooking up with Fantasia. It was something that was actually very interesting, and you could even call it an experiment. Walt wanted to prove that cartoons and animation in general wasn't just kid fare, it was an art form. He also kind of wanted to speak it into a different way. Fantasia is kind of an interesting project because it's not a typical movie per se. I would like to call it a visual concert. It's not a narrative-based film. What Walt did was he used classical music and told either somewhat narrative stories, or he did more emotional-based animation to guide the mood of the songs. The narrator even says that there are 3 types of animation that they go through in the presentation. There's definite, which is more of a straightforward narrative. There's vague storytelling, which is more emotionally driven than narratively driven. And then there's music for the sake of music, or as they call it, absolute music, which they use in the very first number. Fantasia, when it opened, it didn't open in very many theaters because they actually used a special sound system called Fantasound. Unfortunately, not many theaters had the sound system to support it, so it didn't open up to very many theaters, which kind of led to the lack of box office that it got. Also, with it being a non-narrative driven theatrical movie, it's kind of hard to market to an audience. With it being hard to market, it got mixed reviews actually. So someone declared it as a masterpiece in animation, which we'll get into in my thoughts on the movie, but it also kind of came across as pretentious. It seemed more like, to some, that Walt was just kind of being a little too artful with the film, and it being just a snobbish sort of work of art just for the sake of art. Other than that, there's not much I have to say about Fantasia because Fantasia is not a movie that really has a lot of history per se, except when we talk about Herman Schultheis, I believe it's how it's pronounced. He was the spearhead in terms of the visual effects, the special effects of this movie and some other Disney movies during the Golden Age, but primarily this one, which once again we'll get into when I talk about my thoughts on the movie. But other than that, there's not much history because what I really want to talk about is the movie itself, because I think there's a lot more to talk about than the history of said movie. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. Fantasia was one of those movies that I've always seen in a lot of music teacher classrooms. I can attest to that, especially with my mom being a music teacher and all as well. It's one that I find you can't really watch casually because, once again, it's not a narratively driven movie. Now, it does have a narrator between segments of classical music and segments, but other than that, it's not a narratively driven story, and because it's not that, it can be kind of hard to watch, and especially considering purely a silent film, and I say silent film because, granted, there is animation, there is music, there's no talking, so it kind of does almost play out like a silent film, or really, like I said at the beginning, more of a visual concert, because I think that's the best way to represent it. With this movie mainly being more of a visual concert, it's not one that you can really watch casually. And to that, I think that's why it's hard for some to really get into Fantasia. I know some people that Fantasia is their favorite movie, and I clearly understand why. As we've discussed before, Disney's animation and this movie and the past two are phenomenal. Some would even argue it is at top notch between the three movies. This is the top notch the animation is between the three, and there are some special effects that they use in the movie that are astounding to watch today, because it would ordinarily just be done on computer, but they didn't have computers. These special effects that were done by Herman Schultheis are astounding, and some didn't even know how it was done until decades later, when they found a book of his basically writing out the blueprint on how they were done. It's incredible that they were able to figure this out at the time that they did, and it shows. The animation is top notch, and I in some ways would argue is the best animation out of the 5 movies of the golden era. Even if the animation's great and the music is beautiful, it's kind of hard for some to watch, with it being more of a visual concert, because most people will have a hard time sitting through it, because it's not a straight through narrative. It's more of kind of what you would see later in the World War II era, a series of shorts told through music, or just a series of short animated segments, which we'll talk about when we get to Make My Music and Melody Time. So, what did I think? Well, we've already discussed, I love the animation. The animation is beautiful to look at. All the music in this movie is great. Some segments I myself did get a little bored, honestly. I think the ones in particular were the Nutcracker Suite. I love the Nutcracker music. I love Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker music, like without a doubt, hands down. I love it. The animation segment, though, I did get a little bored. I'm not gonna lie. Same with Rite of Spring. I love dinosaurs. The dinosaur segment was great. It was kind of hard for me to get into it, to be honest. I found my favorite segments in the movie were Toccata and Fugue. The Sorcerer's Apprentice goes without saying. It's for sure the highlight of the movie. Alongside with Sorcerer's Apprentice would have to be the duo of Night on Bald Mountain and Ave Maria. It's a great 1-2 punch with Satan and his demons at night, basically on Halloween. It's very gothic, very dark, and the music is impactful and catchy and dramatic, and I love it. Juxtaposed with Ave Maria's more ethereal, heavenly, beautiful accompaniment too. I love the arrangement of Ave Maria. It has a very early Disney style that I love, that you'd hear in like later in Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty and Peter Pan. I love that style of music and accompaniment in that early Disney era. It's charmful, which I've stated in Pinocchio when I was talking about Snow White. I think those two are my personal favorites. So, Ave Maria, Night on Bald Mountain, Sorcerer's Apprentice, and Toccata and Fugue were probably my 4 favorites. Other than that, like, there's not much to say. Like, Fantasia is just interesting in the fact that it's an experimental movie proving to everybody that animation is an art form, not just kid fare, and to some can be a little pretentious, but is truly an art masterpiece. It's like comparing an opera to a Broadway musical. That's how I would compare it. Other than that, guys, like, what do you guys think? Have you seen Fantasia? What are your thoughts on Fantasia? These are mine. I think it's a great movie, and one definitely that's a classic and a staple of the Disney company. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Walt Wednesdays. Thank you guys for stopping by. As always, if you enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe, comment down below which movie are you interested in me talking about next, and what kind of videos you would love to see as well. Also, if you guys have not seen, as of the recording of this video, I did do a reaction to Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, which was great. Definitely check out my reaction. And I am in the middle of doing The Wolf Among Us, leading up to The Expanse coming out this month. So, thank you guys for stopping by. I appreciate you all, and I can't wait to see you all in the next video.